Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Hope you're all feeling well. Um, I can't complain too much about the weather today. I usually complain endlessly about the weather, but it's all right today. It's quite cold, but it's not raining critically. However, it's still not warm enough for my liking. So we're going to try and brighten up our days today with some more mindful art. Um, if you've seen any of my sessions before, then some of the techniques we're going to use today are quite similar. Um, but really, the most important thing about today's session is that I'm trying my very best to convince everyone in the world that you are capable of being creative and you are capable of creating beautiful art, whether you think you've got no skill or not. And so that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to explore a lot of mark making and cutting and layers of different textures and art and things. But really, it's all about just enjoying the experience. It doesn't really matter what the end product is or what it's for. It's just about enjoying the moment and making those marks for absolutely no consequence whatsoever. Nothing can go wrong. You can't possibly go wrong in this session. If you're doing it along with me, that's absolutely fine. I would just say that we're going to use a bit of paint, but we're going to use it very sparingly, so hopefully it will dry quickly. But if you are close to a radiator and you're able to sort of stick your painted piece on a radiator for a little bit to dry, or if not, you're probably best just to let the painting dry and then go back to it later on, maybe rewatch this later. Or alternatively, because there's no consequence to what we make today, you could continue with the session whether your paint is dry or not. It doesn't matter. We're just going to enjoy the experience. I want this to be as mindful as possible. However, I don't think my voice is very relaxing, so I'm very sorry. If you just turn me down and just sort of copy what I'm doing, I'll try to speak very softly, but usually I'm shouting. So we'll see. I'll try to do a mindful voice. We're going to use, as I said, we're going to use a couple of the same techniques I've used before. So if you've done this before, then fantastic. You'll hopefully know what you're getting yourself into. But we're going to add a few different extra bits today that we've not done before. But there's no pressure. You can't get this wrong. Whatever you do today will be beautiful, whether you think so or not, I promise. So you'll see this beautiful bright piece here I've got on the camera. So this is the sort of thing we're going to make today, but we are going to add to this. So this isn't necessarily the end product, although it can be if you so wish it to be. But this is the sort of thing we're going to create, and we're going to create it in layers. We're going to add to it, keep adding to it, covering it up. And we might do some cutting and sticking. Who knows? Let's see. So I'm going to move these out of the way to begin with. And what I would recommend you do first, where am I going to put this? You probably know I've got a very messy office. It should be a studio, but it's not. It's an office. I would like it to be a studio. So what I've got here to begin with is a piece of A3 card. Now, the only reason I'm using A3 card is so that you can see it better because it's a bit bigger. I can fill a bit more space. You don't need to use A3 if you don't want to. You can use A4 card. It really doesn't matter what size you use. The reason I say card is because paper probably won't take to the paint quite so well. It will go quite crinkly. So if you've got a thick card, that would be best. It doesn't even have to be white. It can be whatever colour you like. It could be cardboard. It could be an old cardboard box. If you don't have access to buy sort of plain card, then use an old box that's come from one of your delivery drivers. Anything, any kind of flat cardy material is absolutely fine. So usually what I do is I start throwing paint on here and start swooshing it around. But I thought today, just to sort of really drill into your heads, that the idea is that it's going to be mindful and there's no consequence to it. We're going to start by writing something on here. And I want you to do this with me. If you're just watching for the enjoyment of it, you can do this later on as well. But it's really important that we do this, I think, because we're going to write something and then we're going to completely cover over it. So you probably will never see it again, but you will know it's there. And that's the most important thing. So the first thing we're going to do is get ourselves, well, it could be whatever you like. It could be a pencil. It could be a marker pen. I think I'm maybe going to go in with I'm already trying to make decisions and I just don't know. It really doesn't matter. I think what I'll do is I'll go with a marker pen so you guys can see it. You can choose whatever material you like. So I'm going to choose this sort of brown, this thick brown pen, and I'm going to attempt to not knock all my paint over, which is probably going to happen a few times today. So I've decided that we're going to write a quote, and the quote is very important. The quote was written by Henry Matisse, who is a very famous artist from the past. And the quote is, "Creativity takes courage." And the reason I want us to write this is because I know I meet so many people all the time doing all sorts of classes in all walks of life that just think, oh, well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that because I'm not arty. So today we're going to prove that wrong. So we're going to write creativity takes courage, because we're going to be really brave today and make some lovely things. You can write it however you like. Depends what sort of writing you like doing the best. But I would say fill the page as much as possible. So you might decide to do some different fonts. I'm going to start with a sort of kind of calligraphy style. But again, it doesn't matter. We're just writing it so we're reminded of that quote and why that's important today. So let's make sure we're spelling it right. This is the only thing I need to worry about, is make sure I'm spelling it right. So I'm going to write creativity. And you can spend as little or as long as you like on this. It doesn't have to take ages. You can do it however you like. And I'm not worrying too much about it. I just want to put pen to paper and make a start on something, you know. And then we're going to write takes. I might change the font. I might do something quite bold. And I'm just going to fill the space. That's what today's about. It's about filling spaces with no concerns about what's going to happen. Oh, I need to put an S in there, don't I? There we go. And then we're going to finish with the word courage. So for this one, I might do some sort of block lettering. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm not. Oh yeah, no, we're in shot. We're fine. Okay. And all I'm really thinking about at this moment is making sure I'm getting the spelling right. I'm not worrying too much about how it looks or what the outcome is. I'm just thinking about the quote and what it means. Fantastic. There you go. Creativity takes courage. And we can add some embellishments to it if we so wish. We can add some symbols. We could do some little hearts, or we could do some stars. Doesn't really matter. We're just exploring using whatever pen or pencil we've chosen to use. Doesn't really matter. You could decide at this point to colour it in. You could add to it. You could write another quote over the top of it. Doesn't matter. It's more about the feeling today. So I'm going to put that pen down, and now we're going to go in with our paint. So what you might find at this point is that those letters do sort of start to show through with the paint, and there might be little elements of it that we see throughout, but we're going to try and cover it now because we're just going to enjoy every step that we do. So the next thing that we're going to do is get ourselves a card. I would recommend highly not using an important card. No driving licenses, no bank cards, no national insurance number, none of those. We want a store card, an old gift card, a card that you begrudgingly took from a shop when they asked you to sign up with your email address, and then you took the card and you've never used it since. One of those. The main thing is that it's hard plastic. It means that it's got a nice straight edge, it's thin, but it bends, and you can wash it easily. And this will be used forever. You can use it forevermore. It won't sort of degrade or anything like that. If you don't have any of this sort of thing, then like a plastic ruler will work. If you are quite arty, you might have some like paint palettes, you know, like the little palette knives that you use to add oil paint. Those sort of things are fine. If you don't have access to any of those, you could use cardboard. I would just say that a piece of cardboard probably won't last more than once because it will get all the paint inside it and go floppy. What else could you use? If you don't have any of those things, you could use a sponge. If you've got a sponge from your kitchen that you don't want to use anymore, that will also create a similar effect. The main point is that we are spreading paint. We're spreading it quite thinly, and hopefully, if you've not seen this before, this will be quite exciting because we will see the magic happen. The other thing as well is I want this to be accessible to all people. So we're not using paintbrushes. We don't need paintbrushes, and we're also not using a palette to put the paint on. I don't want any of that fuss. We're just going to add the paint to the paper and we're just going to go for it. It's super easy. You can be as quick as you like, or you can take as long as you like. It's really, really fun either way. You could also do this with children. I've done this with my kids before and they love it. Great fun. You may just need to put down more protection if you've got children with you. So what I'm going to do is I've got some acrylic paints. These are not fancy ones. These are super cheap ones. These were from the range. I've got mainly light colours and mainly bright colours. So today I've got this is sort of like a lilac-y colour, and then I've got like a bright pink, and then I've got like a bright orange. If you have any metallic paints, they look nice because they add a nice sort of shimmer to them. But I've also got some like fluorescent paints as well. So if you've got fluorescent paints like neon colours, they look great because they really pop, and they also blend really nicely together. But you don't need to use any of these sorts of things if you don't want to. If you only have poster paint, that will be fine. I'm just doing it with these colours and neons because it's my favourite. So any paint will do, it doesn't need to be fancy. So I'm going to start with my lilac. Now, I usually, when I'm doing this, I do this over a series of maybe 4 pieces of A3 card. Just because the paint will spread over 4. So just be really mindful. If you're doing 1 sheet today, you only need a tiny, tiny little bit of paint. Now, inevitably, what's going to happen is I'm going to try and do a tiny bit of paint and loads will come out. So we'll see. So I'm going to do a tiny little blob. I think that's already too much. Now, can you see this blob here? I think that's too much to cover this area, but here we go. So we're going to get our card and we're going to start spreading it across the page, and you can spread it super thin or thick if you want to, and you'll also get a mottled effect where it's sort of not quite gone smoothly, and I love these as well. And if I bring this a bit close to the camera so you can see it, you'll see like the thick bits like here where it's completely covered the writing, and the thinner bits where it's still showing through, and then these sort of mottled bits where you get a sort of dotted effect. That's the sort of thing we want. Now, this will become hopefully a bit clearer when I go in with the pink and the orange because they're a bit brighter. I'm just sort of doing this as a base coat, really, because what will happen is, even though you can barely see it, it will create all these different textures and colours when we start to add more colours. So we'll go in with the pink next. And again, I will try not to put too much on, just a tiny little blob. I think that will be fine. If it's not, we can always put more on. So we've got a tiny little blob of pink there. And then wait till you see what happens when we spread it across the paper and when it blends in with this other colour. Well, in fact, it won't blend in. That's kind of the idea, is that you'll see both of the colours together. That's why this plastic card technique works so well. So as we spread this across, you can see that it sort of creates a different effect depending on where it goes. So hopefully you can see this again. You can see this beautiful mottled effect. You can still see the blue dots underneath. You get a thinner pink here, you get a thicker pink, and you can still sort of see the blue showing through. And you get these lovely areas of mixed colours, but they haven't completely mixed, which is why we're not using paintbrushes. If we used a paintbrush, then you blend it all together and it just create a new colour. But this, by doing this, it means that we get all aspects, we see all of it, which I think is beautiful. I'm just going to do a bit more pink over this side. And you can really experiment with using this card. You can do different motions. You can go super thin. You could do some really thick bits. And actually what I quite like about this is sometimes the most important part is just making sure that we have no paint left on our plastic card so that we can go in with the next colour. And if that's the only aim, you're still going to create something really beautiful, even if it is just to clean the card. You're just filling spaces, and it's super easy and it's really beautiful, I think. You get these lovely smudges. So now I'm going to go in with the orange. And hopefully that will be enough. And we're going to spread this. And now I guess what I'm doing is I'm just filling the spaces that haven't got any colour on them. I don't want to see any white at the end of it, really. And actually what's happened, because I've used that thick marker pen, we can still see the quote through it, which is quite nice. It might be quite hard to read, but actually I'm not doing this for anybody else. I don't need anybody else to read it. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing it to enjoy the moment. All I'm thinking about is spreading that paint, where it's going, filling spaces, which textures I like more, which movements I like more. And we're just really enjoying the process. And I quite like, sometimes I find just watching children doing art like this helps, because often you'll find that when they're doing this sort of thing, they're not really thinking about the final product, they're just thinking in the moment. So if in doubt, if you've got kids, give them some paint and watch them and see how they interact with it, because usually you'll find that they've got much more confidence than we adults have, because they don't really care if it's good or not, which is kind of the point, right? It doesn't matter if it's good or not. We're not being marked, we're not being judged on it at all, unless of course you get to the end of it and realize that it's actually beautiful, which it will be, and then you could give it to someone if you wanted. Okay, so I've basically filled the space now. We've got this lovely effect. We've got these three colours. You can see every single bit of it. You can see these beautiful bits. I don't know if you can see this. This is where I get really excited, because there's certain areas that I just think look beautiful, where you've got lovely blended areas and the dotted bits and the thick and the thin. Gorgeous. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some fluorescent colours. Again, if you don't have fluorescent, that's absolutely fine. You don't need fluorescent colours. I like neon colours. If I can get neon colours in my work, I do it as much as possible. So I've gone in with this sort of fluorescent yellow, and I'm going to do the same thing. The reason I do the fluorescent after these colours is because they're less likely to show up underneath the sort of darker colours. So this way I know that they're going to be on show. Look at this lovely fluorescent bit here. I might sort of pull it across so I've got a bit more ink for this bit. And then I might go in with some fluorescent orange. And you can really zone out when you do this, when you get used to sort of using this sort of effect. Sometimes I put headphones on. I was painting the other day and I put my headphones on, and my partner was on a sort of business call for work, working from home, and I had my headphones on and I was painting away, and then when I'd finished, I took my headphones off. My partner said to me, he said, "Did you know, Rosie, when you've got your headphones in, you breathe very loudly?" Now he wasn't trying to like insult me, he was just like, "Did you know that you breathe like 2 times louder than usual when you've got your headphones in?" And I said, "I had no idea. I wasn't listening to my breath, I was listening to my music." So just be aware, if you do decide to put headphones in, it might make you breathe loudly. It's fine, that's okay, nothing wrong with that. Okay, I'm going to go with this neon. So by the way, this one here, these bottles of neon paint, you get a pack of 6 bottles. Now they're quite small bottles, but they go a long way with this technique because you're spreading it so thinly. A pack of 6 neon paints. These were from the range, and I think they were £3. So I think this is quite good value for money if you do need some neon paint and you don't want to spend too much. I think this is a really good option. Now the blue doesn't show up so much, so I might spread it a bit thicker, but it does, when you put it with the pinks, it does make some beautiful sort of neon purples that you sort of this lovely marbled effect, which I'm just obsessed with. Okay, that's great. I'm quite happy with that. I don't think I need to put any more neon colours on. I think what I'm going to do next is add some metallic. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't have any metallic paint, but you can get sort of like golds and silvers, and you can get poster paints super cheaply. You can get them for like £1 a bottle from pound shops or craft stores. You don't have to get this acrylic stuff. But it's just adding a bit of texture, so it's going to sort of shine in the light. And what I'm going to do at this point is just move these paints away because we're not going to need them again. Can you see, hopefully you can see that shininess. You can't see as much at the minute because the paint is wet, but you'll see when it's all dry, the silver really pops. And we can still see that writing shining through, which I quite like. Wasn't expecting that, but I'm into it, like it. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck a bit of glitter glue on it. Again, you don't have to. You could add actual glitter to it. It doesn't have to be glitter glue. You could put some sort of PVA glue on it and sprinkle some glitter on. I like this stuff because you can do the same thing with your card and just spread it. And then that can be the last bit because you've got the glitter over the top of the paint. You're not going to lose any of the other bits of paint underneath, because this should dry pretty see-through, this glitter glue. You just get a lovely shimmery effect at the end of it. Now I'm quite happy with that. We've filled the space. My card is basically clean because I've spread it so thinly, so not much washing up to do. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to place this to one side. I'm going to put it on my radiator. My radiator has one of those sort of like flat tops, so it should sit nicely. It might fall off at some point during the session, but you won't see that. Or if you are impatient like me, I will sometimes put a hairdryer to it, but you just put it on a low heat and don't put it too close to the card, but you can hairdry your art if you so wish. So I've now got, I'm going to do a sort of Blue Peter moment and say here's what I made earlier, because I have now got a piece of card which has all the elements on that I've just shown you. And so it's sort of a blank canvas. We've got this beautiful abstract sort of painting effect all the way around it. You've got the glitter on there. Hopefully now you can sort of see the sort of metallic elements. Can you see the glitter? I don't know if you can see the glitter. It's quite hard to tell on this camera. I do find that this room can be quite glary sometimes. Even when it's chucking it down with rain, it looks like I'm in glorious sunshine, and I am not. So we've got our piece here, and now we're going to add to it. So as I was saying before, the whole point of today is that we're just going to enjoy each stage of the process and not worry at all about anything, because now we've made this beautiful piece, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover it with more stuff. Now at this point, we're going to start thinking about shapes, and simple shapes, nothing too crazy. So what I've got here is I've got these big thick marker pens. So these are Posca pens. They're like art paint pens. These are quite pricey, so please don't feel like you have to go out and buy these. They're kind of like professional pens, but you can get them. You can get them on Amazon, you can get them in craft stores. But if you don't have access to these, just normal marker pens, like thick highlighters, Sharpies, anything you've got, any kind of thick pen. And also I would say thick pen that you don't mind getting a bit messy, because we're going to run it over all these bits of paint. Anything at all. You can skip this part and go straight onto pencils, because we're going to add some pencil bits in as well. Totally up to you, doesn't matter. But I'm going to use some of these, and I'm going to use each of the four colours. And usually if you want there to be a methodical way of doing it, if that is more mindful to you, then that's fine. Or you can just go for your life with all the shapes and all the colours. But what I would probably do is say, okay, I'm going to start with the yellow, and I'm going to do some really big circles. So I'm just going to go in and create, and I'm not going to make them uniform circles. I'm just going to fill the space. There we go. So I've got some yellow circles on there. And then the next thing that we're going to do is, let's see, we could do some lines. So I've got the pink here, and maybe I'll do some lines all the way along the stretch of the piece. Not worrying too much whether they blend or they smudge. I'm just going to enjoy the feeling of drawing those lines. And again, I'm just filling space. So any gaps, any areas of white, any bits that are particularly boring, we can fill them. I'm going to go in with the green next, and maybe I'll do some sort of like scalloped edges, because they're really fun to do. I would say in all of this process, I'm just doing things that feel nice. That's to me feels really nice to do with a pen. Drawing big circles feels really good. You might have other shapes that you like doing. You'll see later when we add more layers with our pencils, there's other shapes that I like doing with thinner pens. And if you experiment with this and explore this more, you will find shapes that you like, shapes that you don't like, and certain pens you like doing certain shapes with. And that's what it's all about. That's all that matters. So do another scalloped edge here with the green. And then last but not least, I've got the blue. So maybe I'll do some little lines. And maybe I'll do some along here. Lovely. And maybe I could do some dots as well. You like dots? Dots are fun. You could do some dots that sort of follow around one of the circles. Really doesn't matter. I might go in, I'm feeling like I want a bit more pink somewhere. So I might do some lines crossing over this yellow circle here. And it's a bit like, I guess what we're doing, I don't know if you did this at school where you got a piece of paper and got a pencil and just did a big squiggle and then coloured each segment of the squiggle in. It's basically that, but like much more fun, because it's just making marks. That's all we're doing. So we've gone in with our thick pens. So now we can go in with slightly thinner. So you'll notice we're going from like big surface coverage to thick to thin, 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 thin. And that's kind of the idea, right? We're just working our way up. So now I'm going to go in. So I've got these neon markers. So these are like fancy ones, but if you've just got highlighter pens, you know, the sort of highlighter pens you use at school or students use to highlight writing, they're great. They're wonderful. Again, if you're like me and you like lots of colour, this will add some zingy, bright neons, which I love. So I'm going to go in with some of these. And at this point, what you'll probably notice with highlighter pens, again, like the neon paint, the pigment isn't quite as strong. So some of this stuff you might not even see. Perfect. We don't need to see it. We're just feeling the motion of doing it, right? So I'm going to do some zigzags, which, I mean, you can barely see, but we know it's there, right? That's the important thing. So I might do some more zigzags. I might use these highlighters to fill some of these edges where we didn't go quite to the edge with the paint. If you want to go all the way to the edge with your paint, you can. I just didn't because I'd get paint everywhere. I'm going to go in with the blue now. I quite like doing big stars that have loads of pointy bits. So I might do a few of them. And you can barely see some of them, but that's okay. I don't mind. I just like drawing the shape. I'm filling those gaps. I'd also encourage you at this point, because I know that, again, this happens a lot when I teach calligraphy, is that sort of unlearning. It's the unlearning of having to do something in a certain way because that's what we were taught at school. So you're taught to do things in a certain way at school so that you could get through school, right? It's the same with writing. And with modern calligraphy, I often have to unlearn the way people will learn how to write because you were taught how to write at school for certain reasons. And it's the same with this. So like, I would encourage all of you at some point during this session when you're doing this is to just do some scribbling, because why not? It feels good. You're not going to get told off and it will add to the texture of the piece. It's certainly not going to look rubbish. And as I've said, we're probably going to cover this up at some point, so you might not even see your scribbles. I just think it feels really nice to know that you can do whatever you like and it will still look great. So I'm just going to make lines wherever I want. I could do some swirls. And even though it might seem like, as I'm describing it, like this seems pointless, I promise you when this is finished, all of it will make more sense and you will notice all of it, and all of it looks great. It all looks great together. What have we got left? Let's do some more of this orange. Maybe fill this white gap here. Do a bit more scribbling, I reckon. There's areas that I feel like I haven't made any marks on. Maybe I'll do some circles here. Beautiful. And hopefully, again, the light is terrible, but hopefully you can just get an idea of, like, there's so much going on and none of it required any skill. Like, we're just scribbling and drawing circles and spreading paint with an old store card. That's all we're doing. And this is why I'm on my quest to sort of prove to people that you don't have to have skill to be an artist. That's not what it's about. Okay, so now I've done my highlighter pens. I shall move those to one side, or throw them to one side. I could just fling them across the room, which is apparently what I've just done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in with some thinner bits. So we're going to use some pencil crayons. These are just standard pencil crayons, nothing fancy. The only fancy thing about them is that for me they are new, which is why they are currently beautifully sharpened. You'll find most of my other pencils are not sharpened. I don't seem to have many very good sharpeners in the house. So this for me is a treat because I've got a lovely set of sharpened pencils. And again, we're just doing this sort of mindfully without having to worry too much about it. When I go in with the pencils, I choose whatever colour I like the most in that particular second. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to have a look, and I'm going, oh, this purple's calling to me. This lovely sort of mauvey colour. And now we've done all this work, so now we can add to it by filling more gaps. And because this pencil is much thinner than all the other things we've done, there's more gaps to be filled because we've got smaller spaces. So we've got all these crossovers where we've got these circles and lines, and there's areas that can still be filled. So I'm thinking like this area here, for example. So I've got this sort of lovely circle here, and we've got the dots, and then we've got a lovely gap here. We've got our beautiful paintwork, and it's not going to get lost, but we can certainly do some stuff on it. So I'm just going to do loads of little lines to fill that space. And you might not even be able to see it very much, but that's okay. And we're just sort of creating shapes wherever we want. If it doesn't show up very much, that's fine. We can use it more colours if you want it to show up. So here, I'm just doing some scribbles along this line. I might do some lines on this bit. And it doesn't matter where they go or how they look. Let's find a nice green. Let's use this nice green here. We could do smaller circles that are all overlapping. Look like bubbles. What else could we do? We could do some more zigzags. Oh, that's a nice zigzag. I like that. And there's no pressure either. You can just follow lines that you've already done. You could just literally colour in gaps. You could colour in some of the bigger circles that you've drawn with the thicker lines. Oh, let's do some more stars. I've gone for this nice dark red. And you might notice if you use some of this metallic paint or the glittery paint that the pencil doesn't show up on it. That's fine. It will show up on extra bits. Doesn't matter. The other thing is, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned this enough yet, but we are probably going to cover over all of this. So none of this matters. What matters is that we're here and we're doing it. And it feels really nice. Yeah, it does feel nice to do a scribble and know that we're not going to get told off. I'm not going to get told off for scribbling here. Okay, I'll maybe go in with one more colour. I'm going to go in with this dark blue, I think. I'm going to do some big shapes now. I'll do some big triangles that overlap each other. Oh, and actually, I'm just going to get one more colour. Let's try with like this orange. I'll do some squiggly lines all the way along, or even some straight lines all the way down. Some crisscrosses. Some crisscrosses over here. Beautiful. So, great. We've done some scribbles with our pencils. I'm going to try and show you, but hopefully you'll get the idea, right, of us building up. There's so much going on, and it's beautiful. And it didn't take any, you know, I didn't try very hard. I just enjoyed. All I tried to do was choose things that I liked, which is why I love this exercise so much, because so often we're doing things for other people, or the things that we're doing are a to-do list, things that need to be done, things that need to be cleaned, things that need to be made, things that need to be tidied. And for this, all that is required of you is to choose colours that you like, shapes that you like, motions that you like, just for you, just things that you like for yourself. I think it looks beautiful. So now we're going to add to that. We're going to do some more. We're going to do some more covering. And at this point, I would say, like, this is stunning, right? You could do anything with this. There are so many ways, there's so many avenues that we could go down at this point. A few of them that we're not going to do today is you could at this point chop this up and turn it into something. So we could maybe chop it into lines or squares, mix them up, stick them back on a piece of card in a different way. There's a million different things we could do. But the next thing we're going to do is, because I think this is something that feels really nice, is we're going to draw some circles. So what I've got here, you can use anything you like that is circular and you don't mind drawing around and is hard enough to be drawn around. I've got this like little sort of ceramic bowl that I really like, and it seems like a really nice shape to fit on this piece of A3. You could use like some of the paint to draw around, a cup, a bowl, whatever you like. But we're going to start drawing some circles. Now for this, I'm going to try it with some chalk pastels, just because we haven't used chalk pastels very often. It might not work, doesn't matter really. So these are just standard chalk pastels. Where's the lid? Let me show you the lid so you can see. I think, again, they might have been from the range, possibly somewhere else similar, but they were very cheap. You can buy, so I've got chalk pastels and I've got oil pastels, and you can get super expensive ones, obviously, but if you go to somewhere like the range or like a pound shop or like a cheapy shop that does arts like Home Bargains, you can get these for like a couple of quid, easy. So don't think you have to go and buy fancy ones. You definitely don't. And I don't think the fancy ones are much fancier, to be honest. I really don't. So I'm going to try some chalk pastels for this one. Let's experiment. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go in with this. I'm drawn to this beautiful sort of like royal blue. And I'm just going to, I've put it on the edge of my canvas, and I'm going to draw around my bowl. And then hopefully we've got a lovely circle. You can't see that very well on the camera, so I'm just going to sort of go around it a bit stronger, but I will show you a finished product in a minute. So then I'm going to go next to it. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 3 circles around the edge. There we go. So this exercise is about negative space, because what we're going to do is we're going to cover some of this beautiful stuff we've done to create another layer. So I've drawn around, got my 3 circles there, and then basically I'm going to colour in around the circles, completely cover the area. And then what you're left with is these beautiful circular shapes that are filled with all that lovely work we did earlier. Now you could do this all the way across. You could do a series of circles and half circles. It's totally up to you. So chalk pastels can get quite messy. So you'll probably have to blow all the sort of excess chalk off the edge of this. But you can explore this as much as you want. You can do so much with these circles. And you see all of those scribbles we did earlier just felt really nice, and now they're covered up. But that's fine, because look how beautiful these are. They're gorgeous. In fact, what you could do, if you didn't want to get messy, is you could do these outlines with a pen and then cut these circles out, and then you'd have some beautiful circles. And in fact, we might try that. We might try a bit of that. So I might actually just rub some of this chalk into my fingers, because that also feels really nice. But what we might also do is then add to that. So I'm going to move my chalk pastels out of the way, and I'm going to get my oil pastels. And what I might do is maybe I'll sort of do some lines inside the circle to fill the circular space, add more pattern to it. And you'll get all these lovely textures because you're going over some of these lines. You might just do a line across here. You might chop it here, turn this into something. We might just scribble inside it. There's so many things we can do, whatever feels right. Sort of colour in with some more. And this is yet another texture. We've done paint, we've done markers, we've done pencil, and now we've got chalk pastels and oil pastels. You're creating some beautiful work here. Lovely, lovely. I'm gonna just pressing in some of that chalk with my finger. And then we can also explore what happens if we go over the chalk. So we could go around some of the circles with the oil pastel. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm just mindful of the time. I want to do some other extra bits to make sure we get a chance. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to cut some of this out, and we're going to use it on another piece of card. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop this sort of, I don't know, this sort of first third, and I'm not being too careful because I'm going to be cutting shapes out of it. I just want to get that excess bit put over to one side. So I've got this bit here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself a new piece of card. Now what I've got is a piece of craft card. So this is like a plain brown card. Doesn't have to be this colour. You can use whatever colour you like. You can use white card. But I really like this craft stuff. You can get this quite cheaply, and it's just lovely. It's got a really nice feel to it. So what I'm going to start doing now is thinking about how I might collage these together. And we're going to use some of our beautiful background that we've made, but we're also going to use the circle effect again, but on some white card, because I quite like drawing circles. I think drawing circles is really fun. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself some shapes out of our colourful piece. I think I'm maybe going to go with some sort of squares and rectangles, and then maybe we'll do circles with our white card. So I think to begin with, I'm probably actually just going to fill the space like so. So I'm going to cut this as straight as I can, but I'm not going to worry too much. So that fits quite nicely there, and I think that would sit really nicely. And then what I might do is I might chop this into sort of a few different rectangles of varying different sizes. Don't really know where I'm going with this, but that's kind of the point. I'm just cutting shapes that I like the look of. And so what I then might do is I might find a way to collage these, see if they'll fit. So they'll overlap quite nicely like that. I quite like that. That's fun. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. I filled that space with those cutouts. I'm going to stick those down. I'm going to do it very, very quickly, and I'm not going to think too much about it. And I'm going to use some dollops of PVA glue, but you don't need to. You don't need to use PVA glue. You can use Pritt Stick if you want, but I'm just going to do this very quickly, just so that we can sort of hold it up at the end. And I'm going to very quickly Now, if we were being really careful with this, then we might sort of paint this and paint right up to the edges, but we don't need to right now. I'm just showing you. I'm going to stick that down like so. What I would also probably do at this point is once I've stuck these down, I might put some books on them just to hold them down so they dry straight and flat. But again, you can use just normal Pritt stick if you so wish. And we're just sort of popping those into place. Again, not thinking too much about it. We're just filling space. Quite like that overlapping there. Yeah, that will do, won't it? Beautiful. In fact, what we could do is we could get our paints so that we can keep our canvas as we're going. We can use the paints to hold it all down. Ooh. Oh, sorry, I've already stuck that one, haven't I? Okay, let's try this one next. I think what I'll probably do is I'll stick these down and then I'll put a load of paint pots on them to hold it down, and then I'll show you the next bit. Nice, nice, nice. And then the last bit just here. Beautiful. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so that's looking good. And what I'm probably going to do is just move this to one side so that I can show you the next section. Hold these in place. I mean, there we go, look, just creating a bit. I'm just covering it with stuff at the minute. That's fine. Okay, move on to our next bit now. So in contrast, so this is a complete contrast to what we've just been doing, I've got myself a lovely piece of white card. The reason I've done this is because if we put these bits on top of the colours, it's really going to pop. But also, this bit can be quite mindful as well. You don't just have to throw loads of colours at stuff. So I'm going to get my circular dish again, and I'm going to get myself, so I've got a couple of black pens. So I've got a Sharpie and I've got a fine liner. I'm going to start with my fine liner, and I'm going to draw around my ceramic bowl, be as neat as I can. And then I think I'll perhaps draw around another one here. Lovely. So I've got two black circles. I don't know if you can see that. Again, it's quite glary. Got two black circles there. And then I'm just going to think if there are any smaller circles I could draw around. Maybe I'll draw around this pot here. I don't think I'd fit another small one in. So I've just picked up the nearest pot of glue I could find. Draw around my circle there. So no worries if you've gone wrong, if you've got any bits on the edge like I have, because we're going to cut them out anyway. And all I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to experiment with drawing lines. So we've gone from being very free and experimental with our paint and our motions and the way we spread the colour and stuff. And now we're going to be quite regimented, but there's kind of like a relaxation in that as well. So we're just going to draw loads of lines with a ruler, and that will create a really beautiful effect. So I'm going to start with this top one. And I think what I'll probably do is I'll use my Sharpie just so you can see it a bit better, because the camera isn't great at picking up the thin lines. But you can do it with whatever you like. You can do it with a thinner pen. So all I'm going to do is I've got myself a ruler, and I'm just going to start drawing lines. And I'm going to overlap the circle because I'm going to cut it out anyway, so it doesn't matter. But this is just really fun to do. And you can be, again, quite experimental with it. But this time we're sort of drawing really straight, lovely lines. And you might do sort of like half of the circle, and then you might decide to sort of switch it around a bit and maybe go along this way. Oh, didn't pick that up. There we go. Beautiful. And this feels really fun to do. So I'm probably going to go most of the way along here. Lovely. And that's probably all we need. Now, you might not be able to tell. If I bring this a bit closer, you'll see that circular outline. And when we cut that out, it's going to look beautiful and geometric, which I quite like. You could add other patterns to it. It doesn't have to be straight lines. So at this point, or you could colour some in. So if we like colouring in, if you like the sort of mindful colouring in books, at this point we could say, well, I'm going to colour this section in. And it doesn't have to be black. You could do it with another colour. But again, all of this, whether we do it with super straight lines and a ruler or loads of different coloured paints and we're just throwing paint at card, it's all just about filling space. That's all we're doing. And it doesn't matter how we do it. So there's that circle. I'm going to do some more lines on this one. Maybe we'll try, I wonder if we could do like an arrow shape. Let's see. And because this is like so different from the work we've done before with the paint, you'll see here, this is not a geometrically correct triangle, right? Like it's not completely center, but it doesn't matter because the lines are straight and they're black and white. So the contrast against the colors will make your eyes not worry about how straight the lines are, if you know what I mean, or the angles of them. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying these sessions, guys. I'm really impressed. I was trying my best today to be as sort of like, I know I can be quite overwhelming and all over the place because that's generally how I do my art, but I really wanted to try my best today to sort of be a bit more relaxed about it and a bit calm. I don't want people to be scared to do this because it's super easy. So hopefully I've not been too sort of crazy and frantic, and this has been a bit more kind of relaxing for you guys to endure. Hopefully you're not enduring it at all. Hopefully you're really enjoying it. So again, I'm just having I'm not thinking too much about it. I'm just going where I feel is right. And I'm trying my best to get through these lines quickly, but you don't have to do this quickly. You can really take your time and enjoy yourself, enjoy the lines that you're creating. And then what I'm going to do, oh, let's colour this bit in. This bit feels like it needs to be coloured in. Yeah, I think crafting by nature can be quite chaotic, can't it? I think that's the joy of it, and maybe sometimes that's the thing that scares people sometimes, is that like if you're like a kind of avid crafter, there's a kind of sense of chaos involved. We know what we're doing, we're having a great time being chaotic, but for maybe people on the outside it looks like too much and too overwhelming and something that they're not capable of doing. So hopefully today has been like a kind of mixture of the two. It's a mixture of chaos but also order, but you're not doing it for anything but the joy of doing it. That's the only reason we're doing it. Yeah, I have to say I've tried very hard not to be chaotic today. Okay, I'm going to do this last circle now, and I'm thinking I'll try and do something slightly different. I'm going to do the lines along here like so, all the way to the bottom, and then I'm going to attempt like a sort of semicircle, I think, so it looks a bit like a sunrise. Do that as neatly as I can. Hey, that's not gone too badly. Quite happy with that. And I'll colour that in. Now these all look like a bit crazy at the minute. They're just like a series of lines, but in a minute hopefully it'll all make sense. And I think I've done quite well for time as well. Like I'm quite pleased that I managed to get that. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do this bit, but I thought this bit was really important because, like as I said, most of my stuff's quite wild and bright, and I just wanted to offer an example of something you can do that's quite ordered and uniform, but is still like super relaxing to do, and also of no consequence. Like you can't go wrong here. We're just drawing circles and lines, and the overall effect will be beautiful. So you see I'm cutting out my circle, Oh, lovely. How good does that look? So I'm going to cut all these circles out, and then hopefully you'll be able to see, hopefully you'll have guessed what I'm going to do next. And we can add to it. We can do as many as we want. We don't have to do circles. I've seen some people doing semicircles, which look quite nice, like C shapes, the letter C. They look really beautiful. Triangles. So there's this beautiful book that I've got. I don't know if this anecdote is going to make any sense. Hopefully it will. It's a children's book that we read to our kids, and there's 3 of them. So there's circle, square, and triangle. And they're really simply illustrated, but they're beautiful. And they're by a guy called John Classen, and they're just great. They're so nice. But the circle one is all about, so there's the circle and the triangle and the square, and they play hide and seek, and they go into a waterfall where it's really dark. And then when Circle goes to look for them, I can't remember why, but she gets mad at them for some reason. But then they realise that actually one of the shapes in the cave under the waterfall is not a circle or a square or a triangle, and they don't know what it is, and they get scared and they run away. And then at the end they sort of say, well, you know, that shape might not have been a scary shape, might have been just like us. And then right at the end of the book they say, if you close your eyes, what shape do you see? And I always find that really interesting, because we always do it at the end of the book. We always all close our eyes and see what shapes we see, and they're always different. And I think that's quite interesting. So one of the ways that you could approach this, if you're still like a little bit anxious and you think, oh no, I couldn't do this, it could be as simple as you closing your eyes and thinking of what shape you see and going, okay, I see a circle, I'm going to do circles. It could be as simple as that. You could do, so there's ways of doing things by chance. You could give each shape a number, and you could throw a dice and say, okay, today I'm doing, I've rolled a 2, that means I'm doing squares. So you could completely take all of the control from you, and let fate decide how you make your art, because again, there's no consequence, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now I've cut my shapes out. I'm hoping if I take all of these things away that I've used to hold down my work, let's see. I mean, I think it will be a bit wiggly, but that's all right. That's fine. Yeah, they still need a bit of time to glue down. But we've got this lovely collage that we've created by just sort of cutting up a piece of our beautiful art. And then we've got in contrast, we've got our white and black circles. And then we would simply place them wherever we think. We could collage them, we could overlap them. If we wanted to, they could stick up, we could make them higher. But wherever we put them, it doesn't matter, because we've not done this for show. We've done this just to feel good. So we'd maybe do this, and then we could always add, we could cut our circles that we created earlier and add those in. We could cut really small pieces and add loads of squares to it. Whatever you fancy. This is just like a very small selection of ways that we can do this, and a very small examples of ways that I do this. And so I think, well, that's time. We've managed it. We've done it. I hope you all enjoyed it. But I think if this is something that you guys have enjoyed today, please make sure you comment and let everyone know, so that I can do more of it, because I love doing this sort of thing. I think it's fantastic, and hopefully it's helping in my quest, in belief that everyone can do art. So have a go at this. Have a go over the Easter holidays if you can. Get your kids involved. Just have a try. All you need is a bit of paint and an old store card, no bank cards, and some pens and pencils. That's all you need. We're just making a mess, and hopefully you're all feeling nice and relaxed and calm, and like shapes are your friend, and pens and paints are your friend. And I will see you all very soon. I'll see you in a couple of weeks for some more arty stuff. But that was really fun. I feel nice and relaxed. Might go and have a lie down. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name's Rosie. My business is Rosie and Ramona. And like I said, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you again. Goodbye.